Welcome everyone to Anders CPAs and Advisors. My name is Dan Schindler. This is my colleague Paul Ray, and we are here for another edition of PPP with Paul and Dan. As many know, businesses have received PPP loans, and by now, many have spent most, if not all, of those funds and are ready and anxious for the PPP loan forgiveness application process, which is completely understandable. However, before you head down that path, as advisors, we would like you to consider a few things.
Thanks, Dan. I think there are 5 key things that we've talked about in the past that we would like for our clients to know before they move forward with their bank and the forgiveness application. The first, and seems to be the most logical at this point, is if your loan is $150,000 or less, there's really no good reason at the moment to apply for this forgiveness. It's really anticipated that automatic forgiveness is going to be granted at some point in time in the future. There's never guarantees, but it seems to be headed down that road. And why supply all your information, create all that time when you may have a single document that achieves that same goal? The next thing is change. The only constant through this whole process has been change. There are several pieces of legislation that are flying around. Politicians have really taken their eyes off the ball right now, but we think it's going to come back with a fury that at some point in time in the future, PPP is going to become critical again, and they're going to obviously make it a hot button to deal with at that time. So it's been confusing, and we know that, but any of the present legislation that has been passed has been favorable for forgiveness. So the longer we wait, seems like the more it moves in that direction. The third item, banks. Banks are key in this whole process, and they're your partners, and they want to do the right thing for you so that you can achieve 100% forgiveness. That's the best all the way around. Some banks have started to allow clients to apply as the SBA portal opened back on the 10th. But that's very few banks. Right now, the majority of the banks that we're seeing are still asking clients to hold off. They're sending emails for certain specific dates in the future so that you can apply right along with them. And that's pretty telling that most of the banks are in that role. They know how critical it is to you, and they want to make sure that you're taking the right amount of time and that they're putting the right portal in place for you to be able to apply for that forgiveness. Another reason, the fourth item is on August 11th, the SBA put out an interim ruling about its appeal process, 26 pages. It's not a very pretty read at this point. It's a process that you do not want to be in. So you want 100% forgiveness if that's what you're entitled to, because the appeals process in of itself could take a long time. Mistakes in the application can cause that appeal process to kick in. So we don't want that to happen. So make sure you're taking the appropriate amount of time there. Really, Dan, last but not least, let's just use for an example that you have a PPP loan that's $5 to $7 million, large PPP loan. I know you're anxious about getting that off your books moving forward, but do you really want to be part of that 10 or 15% that's put into that SBA portal first for them to have eyes on it, all that test process? Because we know that any process that's put in place, especially new, takes a while to work out the kinks. We know the banks, that's one of the reasons that they've been delaying their application process. And that's clearly the reason that we're still waiting on much more information from the SBA and the Treasury. So we're getting dribs and drabs, just enough to get some applications into the process. So we encourage clients to think about that. It would be much better if you allowed those kinks to get worked out. You have 10 months from the last day of your covered period to apply for forgiveness. That 10 months is there for a reason.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. All good information and things to consider. Now, we're not saying to wait 10 months to apply for forgiveness. We just think it would be wise right now to use this time to gather information, work with your advisors to be ready to apply for forgiveness whenever that time is right. With that, we're going to sign off for now. Hopefully you gathered a few good nuggets, and we will be back next week for another edition of PPP with Paul and Dan.